This is the old Logs Road. It runs from Greenock to Logs. It's single track all the way with passing places, so you need to stay at a sensible speed because there's some quite tight turns that traffic can come flying around in the opposite direction. There's a few cattle grids. It's hard to believe that this wilderness is right on the doorstep of Greenock. I'm going to stop off at Loch Thom and show you some of the places that I like to park up. The first one is coming up very shortly on the right hand side. We can pull right off the road and settle in. Pretty sure you could spend the night in here without any problems. Parked up now just above Loch Thom, which you can see in the distance over there. Behind the van there's a track that leads along the north side of the loch, which joins up with the footpath at the other side. The old derelict barn that you can just see at the edge of the loch there is a location that I came to earlier in the year to do some photography. I'll put a link up so you can go to watch that video and see how I made these images that are coming up next. As the camera pans round, you can see how wild and open this landscape is and just how close we are to the Firth of Clyde. Parked at one of the Gryffe Reservoirs. Can't remember whether this one's number 2 or number 3. Lovely spot. Fabulous view. Just at the left hand corner of the loch where the road bends round, there's another pull-in which we'll go to next, and I'll show you what that one looks like. This is the little pull-in on the corner that I showed you from the drone earlier, right next to Loch Thom, looking across the loch towards Dunrod Hill in the distance. Just on the right over there, a little island. I used to live up here more than 10 years ago, and when my kids were growing up they always used to call that island Bird Island, because there's always a flock of geese and gulls and stuff like that sitting up on there. They make a hell of a noise whenever they feel threatened. In the summer the water level's low enough that you can walk across there without even getting your feet wet, but through the winter it becomes a proper island. Just ahead of us now there's a derelict farmhouse coming up at Gryffe. It's been derelict for as long as I've been coming up here, and that's got to be 15 years or more. We'll pull in, have a quick look around. Derelict farmhouse just there, and the van parked just below us a little bit. Over there, with Loch Thom behind. Not a bad spot. This is one of my absolute favourite spots next to Loch Thom. Just at the bottom end of the loch, fabulous panoramic view. The only one drawback is this cattle grid, which when the traffic comes past gives a real rattle, which if you were trying to stay here for the night would probably wake you up unless you're a really deep sleeper. Although having said that, through the night it's not a busy road at all. Just looking at all this dead wood down here. Somebody could be having a campfire tonight. maybe not having a campfire after all. So what I'm just about to do is to try and shoot a time lapse using the DJI Osmo Pocket. Just going to put it on the tripod, point it in the right direction and see how it copes. Watch this space. Unfortunately I had no mobile internet signal just there, so I'm going to head back round to the Gryffe Reservoir. Pretty sure I had a signal there earlier on, so I'll probably spend the night there if I can. I know for some people having no phone signal or internet would be a blessing, but there's a few things I want to get done tonight, so I really could do with being able to connect. I've decided to try and get some star trail photography. It's not something that I do very often, but I got the opportunity tonight. I'm going to make a shot with the van and the loch in the foreground and hopefully some nice star trails in the sky. I'm using a Canon 5D Mark III with a 17 to 40mm f4L lens on the tripod. I've got an exposure time of 40 minutes, ISO 200 f8, so we'll see how it goes. I'll start it off now and come back in 40 minutes. Well, having set up for a 40-minute exposure, I came back only to find that the lens had fogged up during that time. So this is an earlier shot that I did with a 10-minute exposure. You can see there are still some star trails, although they're not as long as they would have been on the longer exposure. The big thing about the photo though is that the light pollution from Greenock and Port Glasgow really lights up the sky orange, which looks pretty horrible. So I put it into Photoshop and I turned that orange glow into a green glow, so now it looks kind of like an aurora. So although it's fake, I think it does make a more pleasing image. Beautiful sunrise this morning. What a view to wake up to. So just about to head off round to the Greenock Cut centre to park up, have a cycle around the Greenock Cut and possibly climb up to the top of Dunrod Hill. As you can see, 3 degrees at the moment, that's Celsius, pretty chilly. Hopefully it's going to warm up as the sun comes up. I did see another motorhome pass by last night after I'd parked up, heading further along the road. If it was you and you're watching this, leave me a comment. Were they out fishing on the loch? What a lovely day for it. Sheep running across the road. So turning off by the spot that I would have stayed at last night if I'd have had a mobile signal. Although no complaints about where I did spend the night. Beautiful spot. I used to live just up here many years ago when my kids were growing up. Just coming around this corner on the left hand side, there's a bit of a depression in the ground. I'm told this is a crater from a bomb that was dropped in the Second World War. Cornelius farmhouse on the right hand side there, where I used to live. Looking quite sorry for itself these days. Greenock Cut centre just up ahead of us now. A bit of a cafe and public toilets in there. And also just round to the right as well is the fishery. Here I am parked up at the Greenock Cut centre. Coffee shop just over there. And behind the trees over to the left of me is the cafe. There's nice picnic tables and benches here. This is the engine from an Avro Anson that crashed on top of Dunrod Hill many years ago. The path up to the hill leads out from the corner of the car park just over there. The van parked just behind me over that way. So my plan is to go to the top of the hill first, and then when I come back down, have a cycle around the Greenock Cut. Let's go. There's a couple of choices of routes up ahead. Don't know if you can pick it out in the video. You can either follow the wall straight up, which is a bit of a steep scramble, or you can zigzag off to the right and then left again, which is a slightly more gentle climb. That's what I'm going to do today. So scanning around from about a third of the way up the hill, there's a wind turbine over there, and then panning around to the left. Got the visitor centre where I'm parked, and the cafe, and just beyond that Cornelius farmhouse. A lot of sheep in the field below it, and then in the middle distance you can see Bird Island, and then beyond that is the Gryffe Reservoir where I spent last night. Fantastic location. The H-shaped loch that's coming into view now is the Gryffe Reservoir. So my plan was, after coming down off the hill and cycling around the Greenock Cut, that we'd go over there and have a look at the park up that I know of, but that doesn't go exactly to plan, so I'll keep watching to see what happens. It's a real boggy bit just here. On the way up I sank almost up to my ankles. I'm glad I got my walking boots on. My £12 walking boots from Decathlon. I bought them 3 years ago for a trip to Iceland. Didn't think they'd last 5 minutes, but 3 years in and they're still going strong. Oh, sinking again. Setting off now on my bike to ride around the Greenock Cut, which is an aqueduct that was built to supply Greenock with water from the reservoirs up in the hills. It's a circular trail and it runs for just over 7 miles back to the starting point. You can see the derelict barn over there, which is just along the path from the first park up that I showed you. The path runs all the way along this edge of the loch and joins up with the Greenock Cut just up ahead. Here I am at the point where the path across to the old logs road joins up. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is the beautiful town of Greenock on the Firth of Clyde. In the middle of the river over there, you can probably see the upturned hull of a ship. There's a bit of a story behind that one. Back in the 1970s, it's a sugar boat that got caught up in a storm and ended up stranded on the sandbank and then toppled over. With all the wrangling with insurance and stuff like that, it was never refloated. It was stripped by opportunists of anything worthwhile, and it's laid there ever since. It's become a bit of a haven for wildlife out there. There's lots of these folding gates along the route. There's just like a kissing gate if you're on foot. If you've got a bike, you need to unlock it and fold it back. Nice little spot here with a stream flowing down and a little prison cell there where you can put naughty children. There's an interesting photo to be taken here, the way the path leads towards this strange shaped dead tree. So just taking a shot. We'll see when I get back home how it works out. So that way is completely wild, and as I spin round to the right you can see just how close we are to the edge of town. An absolute contrast in environments. Following the trail anti-clockwise from the Greenock Cut centre, initially you've got an uphill section for about the first mile and then a corresponding downhill, and then after that it's almost totally flat around the rest of the trail, as you can see from this aerial view. It's a really pleasant walk or ride. So we're going to head down to the Gryffe Reservoir now, which you saw from the drone when I was up on top of the hill. On the way down I'll show you another little place where you can possibly park if you don't mind being just at the side of the road. As you can see, a little road like this is pretty quiet, especially once everybody's settled down after tea time and gone to bed. 14 degrees now. That's a bit more pleasant than the 3 degrees that we had earlier on. Like I said, just coming up here at the side of the road, the big wide area where you can pull in, out of the way, not bothering anybody. Stop short of the gate so there's still access. So as I said, a handy little spot, well off the road, out of the way. It's pretty quiet around here at night time once everybody's settled down. And if you take a short walk down this way, we can go and see the Roman bridge. Lovely river running under us from the left. I think it's Kip water. And then if you cross the road over to the right, you can see the Roman bridge. It wasn't actually built by the Romans, it's just a typically Roman design. I think it was built in the 19th century to get the local parishioners to church. Unfortunately, it looks like you can't get up to the Gryffe Reservoir anymore. The road's gated now. There's this spot here by the entrance into Leafmore Forest. A nice view out across the Clyde there. But as you can see, it's not a very level spot. You'll need some decent ramps to try and get anywhere near level in there. I suppose probably if you backed up a bit more to there, it's probably a bit more level. So I've got one more spot in mind, which means going back up to the old Logs Road and carry on a little bit further towards Logs. Just go up to Cornelius Farm again. Moment of nostalgia for the kids, because I know they watch these videos. Happy days, eh kids? We're going to go to Outerwards Reservoir. Let's put an open pulling spot just there. If you don't mind sloping ground and electricity pylons. Another big pull in here. That's quite nice. Bit of junk lying around, which is a shame. Somewhere as pretty as this. So a pretty good spot just here, well off the road. Nice view across the hillside. Should be pretty decent mobile phone coverage too. And that's our next little pull-in area, just coming into view on the right hand side of the road just before the reservoir. That's the van just parked over there. And panning round to the left, Outerwards Reservoir, sparkling in the sunshine. A lovely spot. Well, that's me heading home now. I've had a lovely, enjoyable day in the outdoors. Just got a little bit of family nostalgia coming up. Just on the left hand side up here, there's a little tin hut. When my son was young, probably about 4 or 5 years old, he always used to say that 2 little doggies lived in this hut, and it's always stuck with me. Every time I pass it, I always think of that. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed it. I'd love it if you give me a like or subscribe or leave me a comment.